Hi, and welcome to another episode of Your Conversation Starter. My name's Wilhelm, and I use these opportunities to talk to you about different things that I find across the internet and what have you that allow you to go forward and have things to talk to other people about. So it's not a self-help thing or anything like that. It's purely let's find different things that we can talk about. And really, the whole emphasis of this channel is to get people like yourself to be more social. So, on that note, today I'm kind of going to go off the rails. This is usually I find a piece of news somewhere on the internet that's just a little different than the rest of the stuff. And I discuss it and I kind of relay it to you. But today I thought, I have some strangeness in my own life that I thought I might just go over myself. So it starts about maybe 5 years ago. On the main floor of my home was a shelf. It's called a floating shelf. It's like these shelves here. But it's about if you were to stretch it across like all three of those, it was a large shelf. And on that shelf, I had some Pilsner glasses that I had picked up on my time in Germany. I have a lot of family over in Germany, and we had visited them. And those times were... It was time spent with some family members that are no longer with me. So having these things there was sentimental attachment, I guess is what I want to say. So on this one shelf, there was 4 Pilsner glasses that were collectible. There was a German boot glass that was given to me by my stepdad, and there was a Toby mug, which is a small ceramic mug that kind of looks like an old English person with one of the 3 pointed hats. And that was my grandmother's. And every time I'd ever gone to her house, I always remember seeing that on a shelf over the sink. And so when she passed, I asked my dad, I said, "Can I have that?" It always reminded me of Grandma. And he said, "Sure, I have it." So these things were on this shelf. And we went out one day and we came home to find that somehow the shelf had been pulled down, and it did look like someone had grabbed the front of it and pulled down, and all the stuff had slid off and smashed on the floor. Like none of it was salvageable. All of it was done. And it bewildered me because there was these glasses, there's no way they exceed the weight of the shelf. And they were also pushed right against the wall where there was the most weight carrying strength was there. So it's not like they were at the front of the shelf and you had mechanical advantage and all that. I didn't know why it happened. So I had pulled, the way the shelf works is there's 2 prongs that stick out. So I pulled the wooden part off. I bent the prongs back up, put the thing back on, and I put new stuff on there where it stayed fine until we did some renos recently and I removed the shelf from the wall. So everything was fine. So there's still, why did this happen? It was very weird. Now, same room, 2 years later, ballpark. And my son had reached an age where he was doing artwork. He had done a particular drawing that I was very proud of, and I had printed it and put it in a frame that was 12 inches by 15 inches. And I thought, it's going to be really cool if on this different wall, I had mounted a picture that I did, because I'm an artist, and a picture that he did, and it was like father-son art. And then underneath that is a half-circle table that had some tasteful pictures and things on it. And again, we come home to find that the upper picture had popped off the wall and not just dropped down where it should have hit the table, but it was 4.5, maybe 5 feet down the hall, face down, smashed, and the glass spread out from that point. So even if you're an open-minded person, so I looked at it that way. Say for a fact that something should shake the house. I'm in Canada. We don't have earthquakes. We rarely get tornadoes or any wind sort of elemental things like that. So really the only thing that might shake the house is if a construction vehicle went by, and that wasn't the case at the time. So why? Maybe a neighbor, because my house is a semi, there's another house that's attached to it. Maybe a neighbor did something incredibly violent to shake the house, but still the anchor was a metal screw-in anchor. So you put a screwdriver in this thing, you put it in a hole in the wall, and you turn it in, and it barrels in it, it gets strong and anchors that way. And then the screw that I put in had a large enough head that the wire that was along the back would go over, like, you had to lift it up. Like, I did the due diligence of making sure that this thing was going to stay on the wall for some time. But yet when we came home, it had popped off and then gone down. So say it did pop off. Well, gravity would then pull it down. Everything on the table below it was fine. The picture that my son did below it was fine. And yeah, it was my artwork that got dinged. So that one was weird. And then we go a little bit more towards today, and we hear a bang when we're downstairs on the main floor, and I come upstairs to see the office. This is my workspace here when I'm working remotely for the companies that I work for. And I had come into this room and found that one of my Tron figures had fallen from the top shelf. And so I was like, maybe, being open-minded, maybe it was a case where the ankle flexing points had caused it to fall forward, and maybe it was a mechanical thing. Maybe the temperature in the room heated the plastic to a certain, like, I was very open-minded. And then a couple days after that, on this shelf right here, I had a couple of Thundercats statues, so no moving point, like joints or anything like that. And the Lion-O character, who was been sitting on that shelf for well over a year, and there's not a lot of airflow in this room. I mean, I have a vent here, but I have a cover that directs the air across the floor, and only the Lion-O character was knocked off. All the other little characters that were kind of leaning around it were still there on the shelf. And that just baffled me. Now I've since moved them into a display case over here. And luckily none of the other things have moved. But then 2 days ago, where's my hand? Right there. That Boba Fett helmet was rotated around and facing the corner. Now I thought, this chair here is for my wife. So sometimes I'll be working long hours and I'll have to sit here that's her now actually. I'll be sitting here at the desk and I'll be working away at things, and just so that we can still spend time together and stuff, and there's not any like issues like that. She'll come in and I put this chair here so she could sit here, and sometimes I'll have like a show on or something, and so we could sit. So I thought maybe, because there was a day where she was here last week, I thought maybe she was bored waiting for me, and she like put her hand up and she moved it around. But when I asked her, she said no. Now there's still a chance that she's just messing with me, because who wouldn't want to mess with me? But she says that she didn't do it. So now, recently, in 2018, I lost my stepfather, and just last year, I lost my father. So I do have some very close family now on the other side. I'm not saying ghosts. I'm really not someone who believes in ghosts, but I have seen some strange things, and I'm not yet able to explain what it is that's going on. So my conversation to you is to say, what do you think? What sort of strangeness happens in your life? And please, they give me a comment section. Use it. Talk about things that are happening to you. And if in the least, my whole purpose of doing this is that you're going to sit down some point and talk to someone and say, there was this guy on the YouTube I saw, and he was talking about this thing. Has anything like that happened to you? He says that this happened and blah, blah, blah. What do you think? At least you're talking and you're connecting, and that's my whole goal for doing this. So thanks for tuning in, and stay social, folks.